Nikki, thank you so much for jumping on this call with us today. As I mentioned, it's a privilege and an honor to have you. So if you guys don't know who Nikki is, you guys want to know Nikki. She is an incredible partner and person within Keller Williams and a leader. So Nikki, I'm not going to jump into all of your titles and everything. I'll let you tell us what you've done and I'll ask you some questions from there.
Yeah, this is always the most awkward part, right? Because you have to like convince everyone that they should listen to what you have to say based on your accomplishments.
Yeah, it kind of turns into like Game of Thrones where you're like listing off all your titles and everything.
Yeah, all my names and houses.
So that's what I want to know, all your names and houses, Mother of Dragon, all of that good stuff.
I'm a Stark for sure. Yeah, so I'm a team leader. I lead KW Santa Monica. We do about 1.3 billion in sales a year, so we're a very large market center. I also have a mega expansion team in both Northern and Southern California. KW is very near and dear to my heart. I've been at this company since I was 22 years old, so I'm part of KWYP, heavily involved in that. I'm also on the board of KWKC, which is KW Kids Can, a quantum leap instructor. I'm involved in all of the ways that I can be to help impact this company in any way that it's impacted me. So I'm excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, so with 2020 being such a crazy year, I know you've had some pretty big milestones of your own.
Yes.
So congratulations. Number one, happy belated birthday.
Thank you.
And I know you had a baby a month ago, 6 weeks ago?
Yeah, 7 weeks ago. She's 7 weeks old today.
Congratulations. So
thank you.
What has that been like? Being a team leader, leading Keller Williams Kids Care, being pregnant, there being a global pandemic. How do you continue to show up, and what is your mindset through all of this?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly didn't plan to lead such a large company or anybody through a global pandemic and crisis. Between the months of six to 9 months pregnant, 10 months pregnant to giving birth. So that was certainly an experience, I'll say that. I think I just constantly go back to that. For me, it's just been taking it one day at a time. At the beginning of all of this, as a leader, I received, certainly as a leader, you receive the praise and you also receive the criticism and how you handle things. That's part of what you sign up for as a leader, and I was just really honest with my people in that, I'm doing the best that I can alongside you. I haven't been trained to lead a company through a pandemic. I don't know what the right answer is, but I know that I'm going to show up. And I know I'm going to show up every day in the best way that I know how, in the way that I think that my people need me to. And when they tell me how I can do better, I'm going to. And that was sort of my philosophy every single day, and how I chose to, to move through it. And, as for the other things, I mean, I don't think that life ever happens when it's convenient for us. And so I got asked a lot, like, how are you doing this while pregnant? And I'm like, well, just, how do I not? I mean, I have two choices. I either do it or I guess I like crumble and don't, and that wouldn't be what my people need. And, I've always been here to be the leader that my people need, not the leader that I want to be. And so that's how I, thought about it every day. Who do they need me to be today? And that's who I showed up as.
That's wonderful. And I see that you have a lion over your shoulder.
I do.
And I did a little research, of course, and I know that a lion, not only Leo is your sign, but I know lions are your spirit animal. Tell us a little bit about that, because I know that's a big part of your personality as well.
Yeah, it's it's just an animal that's really dear to my heart. It's something that I've really connected with over the years, and something I've spoken a lot about. If anyone's ever seen one of my speaking engagements, it's I just always go back to them because just picture a lion, running wild. They, stalk their prey, attacking and killing at will, and then go in search of their next conquest. I mean, they're not worried about, what you think about them or what your take on them is. They're just out there being a lion. And, I had this sort of life-altering moment, as exaggerated as it sounds, when one day I went to a zoo, and I, in short, I basically was like just there to see the lions. I really don't care about any other animal. I went directly to the lion exhibit, and the lions slept all day. And I asked the person, that worked at the zoo, I was like, well, when are they going to wake up? Because I'm here specifically to see these lions. And he said, well, lions in captivity, they don't sleep, they'll sleep, 22 hours a day. And I was like, oh my God, like that's a sleep schedule I can get on board with, right? And so I talked to a friend of mine who's a zoologist, actually, and I asked her, is that true? Like, do lions really sleep that much? And maybe that's why they are my spirit animal. And she said, no, that's something they really only do in captivity. And it sort of occurred to me that, we grow into the environment that we're in, and lions in the wild don't behave that way because it goes against their natural instincts. It goes against what their lion instincts tell them to do. And so it sort of became the symbol for me from that time forward that, that I would just listen to my instincts, and I would be who my heart told me to be, without worrying about whether people would judge it, and without worrying about, how people might perceive that.
That's so cool. That is so cool.
Sorry, you probably hear my dog walking around.
My dogs are not here today. Otherwise they would just be, running all over the place as well. So, you're now in a leadership position. You're running an expansion team inside of Northern and Southern California. Obviously you didn't start there.
No.
Take us through what your journey started looked like, and how it's led to where you are today.
Yeah, like I said, I started at KW when I was 22, and at the time I had just moved from Southern to Northern California. Starting as a real estate agent in a city where I didn't know a single soul, and in a business where I didn't know anything. And I always say that action was really the foundation on which I have arrived here. It's the one thing for me that's always cured fear. I just take action and continue to move forward and take steps forward. And, I found KW by the, grace of whatever it is that you believe in. And so I found KW, and I did everything that they told me to do. Like, I did everything by the book. I read MRA, probably in my first year, literally like 10 times. I went to every class, and I literally I was like the golden, student. I did everything that they told me to do. And I was sure that if I did that, like, I would be rookie of the year. I would, get all these accolades. And in my first year in real estate, and I started in January, so I had like a true first year, I made $15,000. Like, I was I was at the back of the pack for the running for rookie of the year.
Okay, wait. So repeat that. So now you run a team, you have teams, you're leading an office, you have all sorts of involvement, and your first true year in real estate, 15K.
15K, yeah, for like 12 full months in real estate. I door knocked almost every single day. I door knocked like 350 something days. I literally still have my notebook where I kept track of all of the days that I door knocked. I door knocked every day, and and did open houses probably almost every weekend. And even after all that, I still landed at 15K, which I think was like 2 closings. And but then the next year, I was one of the top individual agents in my office, and the next year had started to build a team, and and then it all sort of started to snowball. And it was my whole career is a reminder for me of, and hopefully for others, if they may need an inspiration, that what you do every day matters, and compound interest is real, and you are the best example of that, and how you choose to show up every day matters. And I am not going to pretend that through those days, and through that first year especially, that I didn't lose faith a lot, because I was like, I'm working my tail off and nothing's happening. They told me something would happen and nothing's happening. And yet, eventually all of that work comes to fruition, and it all has to do with how you choose to show up. And and everything has grown from that. You're right, Pablo. It didn't happen overnight, and yet it's continued to grow. And the cool thing is that once you build momentum by showing up every single day, you become unstoppable. My husband always jokes that I'm the juggernaut, which if you don't know what it is, he's like a Marvel character where he's a bad guy, but I guess I'm the good juggernaut, where he just runs, and the more he runs, the more he picks up momentum, and the more and the stronger that his momentum is, and the bigger and thicker the wall that he can run through. And that's me. Like I just continue to have momentum, and always when I stop something or when I don't show up, I feel that pull away from from my end goal. And so I'm really conscious about how I show up every day, and I think that has a lot to do with what's accumulated around me.
That's awesome. Do you write down your goals?
Oh yeah, you have to.
I know. I ask because people hear me talk about writing down goals all the time, and they can only hear from me so much.
Yeah, I think I very much believe that you have to be able to dictate like what you want to the universe. You have to believe in it and see it and hold it and know that it's coming before it arrives. And for me, the best way to do that is to write it down.
I love that. So because when I met you, we actually met at a class. You were an assistant team leader in
Yep.
Walnut Creek, and since then you've gone and grown. So what would you say, aside from just mindset and having this big vision for yourself, like for people out there who are listening, who are in that first year? So I stepped back into production full-time last year. My first 6 months was a lot like your first year, where it's like the activities are, over the top. I'm doing everything, and, I'm not second guessing. And at the same time, there's that little voice that's creeping in. What did you do to help you continue to push forward when those days showed up? And even now, when those days continue to show up, and when you don't feel like that leader or being that leader, how do you continue to show up and be there for your people?
Yeah, I love this question, Pablo, and I love that you, as a leader yourself, have the ability to say it out loud, because I think sometimes, it always breaks my heart when people who are in leadership positions create this illusion that they're like on fire every single day, because it's just not true. It's really not. I've yet to meet someone, even the most successful people I've met, that are on fire every day. And so I do think it's important that you create strategies. And the best thing that you can do is have a plan for yourself on what you're going to do when the day comes. Because people always think, well, maybe I'm not cut out for this because I don't wake up on fire every day. I'm like, nobody does. We all have our days. I certainly have my days where I'm like, oh, I would do anything to stay in bed and watch Netflix all day today. And yet my goals are bigger than that. So that's the first thing, is that I do write my goals down so that I can remind myself why I'm doing what I'm doing. What is it that I'm going after? And, what am I here on this planet to do? And my sort of trick, which hopefully it'll help, you or someone who watches this, is on the days that I don't feel like I know what to do, or that I don't want to do anything, or when I find myself in a situation that I'm like, I've never dealt with this before, I don't know what to do. This whole year has been that for me. I think for everybody, right? Like none of us really know what the answers are. None of us are handling this the right way, because there is no right way. And so what I always do is if I don't know the answer, the me that's sitting here right now, I ask myself, okay, well, I think about who I want to be. Who is the leader that I want to be? What is the life that I want to have? What would she do? And then I just go and do what she would do. And it's my little trick to just like get outside of myself and to go and take action on whatever I think the right thing to do is, or whatever, and usually the case is that she would think the right thing is to do. So I think about, okay, who is the leader I want to be? What would she do in this case? And then I go and do that. And my theme always is just take one small action. So if it's a day where you don't feel like doing anything, so if it's not that you don't know what to do, it's just that you don't feel like doing it, maybe you know what to do and you just don't want to, just do one thing. Just do one small thing. I always give the example of, I'm the perfect example of someone who does not wake up on fire. In fact, I'm very much not a morning person. took me years to like get my tail out of bed before even like 8 a.m.
So you're telling me I can live a big life and not necessarily be a morning person?
Yeah, I'm not. Like, you don't want to, we don't, people always are like, let's meet at 9 or let's have a coaching call at 8. I'm like, you don't want me at 8 or 9. Trust me. There's a reason, Pablo, we're doing this interview at 2 p.m. And,
Makes sense.
and so anyway, so, you know, I started, but I did figure out that if I could wake up earlier, that I would be able to do more things, that I could have a bigger life with the time that I had. And especially now as a mom, I knew with that coming, like I'm going to need to have some time to myself in the morning if I want to continue to be able to do the things that I do. And so I started small. I literally started with a habit of just getting out of bed in the morning at a certain time. So I would get out of bed at 5 a.m. and I would go and I would sleep on the couch, but at least I was out of bed. Right? Like, and I would start small and I slowly scaled my way back from there until I finally got to the point that I was waking up every day at a regular time. And again, it's just an example. I deal with everything like that in my life. I take bite-sized pieces, but I take action on something. So even if you're not feeling like you can run a marathon that day, go for a walk, right? Like, even if you feel like you don't want to lead generate at all, text one person. Just make yourself do something so that you can build the habit, and that you become the person who doesn't negotiate with your goals, and you build the habit of, even when your brain says, I don't want to, well, I told you to, and this is important to us, so we're going to do it anyway.
I like that. Don't negotiate with your goals. What's a non-negotiable for you? Let me ask you this. It's a very silly question, and I already know the answer. Have you ever regret taking action on those days where you're like, I don't want to do this? Have you ever actually like gone out and done it and you're like, God, I was right. I'm really so happy. Has that ever happened?
Of course not. I mean, you never regret it, because I think you look back and I think every time you do that, it's proof to yourself that you are stronger than the voice up here, right? Like, that you are stronger than the voice that says, I don't know if I can do it, or I don't want to do it. And I think that the more you can prove to yourself that you are stronger than that, and that you are the person that takes action. Again, I always ask myself, what would that person do? What would that future version of myself do in this case? And if the answer is don't take action, which is usually not, then sure, I'll sit around. And yet yet the answer is usually, well, the person who has achieved everything you want to achieve, would not sit on the couch today. She would get up and go and do something. And so I go and I do that, because, you know, ultimately, I think when we look back, our life is made up of all of the times that we chose to, you know, to make the hard decision, and that we chose to, you know, do something even when it was hard, or even when it was scary, or even when we were unsure. And, you know, I just don't think that you ever regret that.
I love that. And speaking to that, how do you, okay, here's a better question. What are your big rocks, your priorities? Because obviously you can't go out and be achieving at a high level, you know, just at work at all times. You would burn out, right? So I know you have a very strong family life. How do you prioritize? I don't want to call it balance, because I think you and I both know that it's not really balance. It's, you know, choices and priorities. So
Yeah.
how do you prioritize everything so that, you know, you still can have a strong relationship, you can be a mother, you have an awesome cute little puppy, like run a business? What does that look like for you, and what are your rocks in your world?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me on this whole answer will probably be a little bit unpopular, so I'm gonna brace yourself.
Even better.
Okay. My first priority, my biggest rock is myself. You know, I say all the time, I am a very selfish person. I take time for me, and I do not negotiate on that. You know, like I said, as of last week, I had a 6-week-old baby, and I took some time to go and get a massage, and like all my mom friends were like, what? Like, you left the house with a 6-week-old baby? Like, who's taking it? Like, it was like the wildest thing to them. But I know myself well enough to know that if I don't take care of me, if I don't exercise, if I don't sleep, if I don't take care of myself, if I don't do the things I like to do for growth, if I don't write, which is something I love to do, then everything around me starts to fall apart. And so I am heavily protective of that time, and nothing gets in the way of that. And I set the tone for everyone in my life, whether it's my family, my, you know, my work family, I call them, or my home family. They all know that. They know that I am very, very protective over my me time because I need it in order to live a big life. I've seen people try to do it all, and eventually, Pablo, you said it best, you know, you burn out or you crumble, and then you're no good to anybody. And I know that I need to show up for me first before I can show up for anybody. And, you know, for me, I think about, I have a daughter now, and I want her to see when she's older how important it is to take care of yourself and to look out for yourself. And that, you know, if you're a person who's constantly looking out for everybody else and constantly pouring out of an empty cup, you know, eventually that catches up with you, and then you're no good to anybody, yourself especially. So I really believe that we change the world by first becoming the best version of ourselves. And in order to do that, you need to show up for you first. So that's my biggest rock, first and foremost. My second, you know, piece, which is always my answer to this, is I'm not under, and this really is, you know, for females or for males who have families, that this may, you know, pull back a curtain. I'm not under the impression that everything at home is my responsibility. I'm just not. And, you know, I've always been of the mind, you know, my husband and I both work. We both made this child together. We are both her parents. We both own this home together, and, you know, so on and so forth, all the things that we have together. We are a team. And I don't care what societal norms have created, you know, this idea that, you know, I think so often women are shouldering the burden of just, even just the mental burden of, you know, making sure the kids have all this done, or that they're shuttled, or, you know, that this is done in the house, or that this is done in the house. And it's too much. It really is. It's too much for one person to handle, especially if you want to be doing other things. For me, I've always wanted to own businesses and work and travel and live a big life. And I can't do that if I'm the only person dealing with everything else at home. It's just physically impossible. And so my husband and I take time every single week to split up who's going to tackle what. I'm going to handle this week, and you're going to handle this week. And we both sort of have like our responsibilities within the house, and now with our child and with our dog and all of those things. We split it up because it's not my job. It's our job together. And we chose to build this life together. And therefore we will both be responsible to maintain that life together. So, you know, those are my two biggest rocks when it comes to managing my time and managing my energy, because that really for me is the biggest piece. I think that you can live a big life and that you can do everything you want to do if you can manage your energy enough to be able to give attention to the things that matter most.
That is so cool. And I don't think it's a topic that enough people talk about, as far as managing their energy, and even paying yourself first, right? It's such a like core investment strategy that they teach you, is always pay yourself first. But how often are we investing that me time in ourselves to make sure that, you know, I'm pouring into myself so that I can then go out and pour into others? That's really, really cool. All right, our last few minutes together, biggest, most loaded question of them all is, as not only a strong woman inside of Keller Williams, as you know, Keller Williams was voted again by Forbes as the best place for women to work. What advice do you have for women who are looking to not only be inside of a great organization like Keller Williams, but also, you know, rise into leadership positions? Because you've worked with some pretty incredible people inside of our organization, a lot of people that I admire personally and professionally. And I just kind of want to hear what your advice is to other young women, other young leaders who are looking to, I wouldn't say follow in your footsteps, but blaze their own trail.
Yeah. I think you said it best, Pablo. It's that you need to feel the confidence to blaze your own trail. I mean, I think, you know, for young people and for young women especially, I remember being in, you know, I got really lucky, and I hate using that word, and yet it was simply I not only landed in a company, but I also landed around people who were open-minded enough to, let a 26-year-old come, female come run their billion-dollar company. I mean, it doesn't happen that often that you're around people who trust not only young leaders but young female leaders to come in and do that. And I think by being around those people and being in the company that we're in, not only as an organization, but in the company as human beings that we're so lucky to all be surrounded by in this company, is that I started to realize that I had value. And I think that that's something a lot of young people sometimes forget, that even, because they're not experienced, and maybe it's that they don't have a lot of years in the business, or they haven't built this huge organization yet, that doesn't mean that you aren't valuable. And that doesn't mean that you don't have good ideas. And that doesn't mean that you're, that you shouldn't have a seat at the table, because you should, and you should share what you know, and also be open to learning. And I think the best thing that I can, the best piece of advice that I can give is, like I said, Pablo, exactly what you said: blaze your own trail, and also just be authentic, be you. I've found that when I excel the fastest is when I show up with everything that I have, right? There's no damper on who I am. I'm not hiding behind it. I'm not trying to be something else or someone else. I show up fully as I am. And yet, all that I am also, there's part of that person that doesn't know things yet. And so I'm also open to who I want to be and how I want to grow. And so, as a leader, I think it's especially important as a young professional, as a young woman, that you know that you have the right to be there, that you show up fully as you are, without any apology. And then you also remember that there's going to be people around you who might know a little bit more, and who have had longer in this business or on this planet or whatever that looks like, and that you should be open to growing. And it's going to be equally as important that you find yourself in company that believes in you, and that is willing to listen, and that is willing to challenge you, in order for you to get better.
So cool. Thank you for sharing that. And then my last question, I promise.
I love talking to you, Pablo.
I appreciate you. I love talking to you too. I'm so sad I'm not going to see you at Mega Camp.
I know.
So last question for you is, you've come this far in the last, what is it, 6 years? 4 years? 6 years? What's next? Next 3 to 5 year goals? What does that look like for you guys?
Oh, that's always such a hard question for me to answer. I said a long time ago, one of the things that I realized that at being a part of Keller Williams, and actually being part of Quantum Leap, in my first Quantum Leap class I ever took as a student, all this time, in my life, I had been asking the question, what do I want to do and what do I want to be? And it was in that organization, and part of the reason that I'm so involved in it, it was the first time that they asked me, who do I want to be, instead of what. And so now I never really have a great answer to what do I want to do or be in the next 3 to 5 years, because it's more about who I want to be. And that's all I focus on. It's all I focus on now. In fact, very few of my goals have to do with like production volume or homes sold or businesses built. It really has more to do with who do I want to show up as a leader, how much money do I want to donate, and then as odd as it sounds, everything else sort of falls into place around me in order to facilitate that. The business I've chosen is real estate, and yet I worry very little about how many homes it's going to take in order for me to make that goal. I am more attached to who is the person I want to be for my team. Who do I need to become in order to achieve the number of lives impacted that I imagine. And so that's really more what I focus on. And so every day I'm asking myself, who do I want to be in 5 years from now? And what does that look like? And it was a cool experience. Actually, I recently moved. And so I was cleaning out my garage from my old place and moving it into my new place. And I found my very first 411. And it literally was all focused on how many homes sold, how many appointments, how much money made. And I realized how not only how much can change in 5 years, right? Like how much you as a person can change, how much your goals can change. But I realized how narrow-minded I was because it had nothing to do with who I wanted to become. And once I unlocked that, and once I realized that it was very little about, how many appointments I could have or how many open houses I could do or doors I could knock, and it was more about who do I need to become in order to achieve this goal. Like I said, everything else sort of just started to fall into place. So those are my goals. I decide who I want to be and how to facilitate that inside of what I do every day.
Dang, you have all the best answers.
It's the honest answers.
That is so cool. So describe this person. So we know you're a lioness juggernaut, and doesn't matter how long it takes for you to accomplish or realize this person of or perception or vision of yourself.
No, I mean, it really doesn't. It doesn't ultimately matter, right? Because there's no destination, because as soon as I reach who I think I could be 5 years from now, then the next sort of level will evolve, right? And I think for me, it's just about really embracing this idea. I think one of the other things for young leaders especially to recognize is I remember when I started to sort of step on this path, and these things sort of started like clicking into place for me. When I look back, it all sort of is like, it was like, the way I envision it is puzzle pieces started to finally click together. And I was like, oh, this is so much more fulfilling to go after a person and an ideal of who I want to be in this world and how I want to treat people and the good I want to do, rather than how much money do I want to make and how many homes do I want to sell. And I think it's important to recognize and talk about, for young people especially, like I lost a lot of friends that I had and people who were like, you've changed, like you're really different. And I so embrace that now. I mean, the person that I know now, and that the people around me know now, I hope that she's different 5 years from now, and that I'm a better version of myself in any way that I can be, by continuing to walk the path of growth. And always when I look forward, I see someone who's wiser and who's able to do more good as a result of being an even stronger and more put together human being, and who's more compassionate and more caring, and continues to amass even more knowledge that hopefully I'll be able to, and in an even better way than I can now, help other people start to realize too. I mean, every year for me, I feel like it's pulling the veil back a little bit more to understand that maybe some of the ways that I went about achieving success or even defining success at the beginning is so different from what it is now. And I'm so much more fulfilled on that journey than I was before. So that's always, what I look at. And the person I want to be is, someone who's a better version of myself. And as a result of becoming that, who's able to hopefully encourage and inspire others to do the same.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing and spending time with me, and for, always just pouring into others. This is going to go out to a ton of people, and hopefully this resonates with somebody who's listening, who can identify with your journey, with the things that you've talked about. I know personally my biggest aha in our conversation has been the who, and really focusing on that, and what does that look like, and how do I tie my personal goals today with who I want to be down the line. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Pablo. Thank you for having me. It's good to see you.
Good to see you.